Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse The Demon, aka ETRIGAN. Is he not called ETRIGAN anymore? I mean, it used to be the Demon ETRIGAN, or ETRIGAN the Demon, or just ETRIGAN. I've never heard him called the Demon. You guys can let me know what's up with that. But this is the newer version of ETRIGAN, where he's got the armor, the scale mail, and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a cool look. I tend to prefer the red tights, but this is a cool look. And I was very excited for this release when they first showed it. It looked awesome, and I was definitely going to get it. And then I had a pre-order for it, and I saw it in stores. And I was like, ew, yuck, don't want that. Canceled my pre-order, never bought one. So luckily, you guys get to see this because a buddy of mine bought the figure and was so disappointed with it that he needed to warn everyone else about how bad it was. So he sent me one to review for you guys. And so thanks to him, you guys get to see this review and I get to review it. Now that's not to say there's not some good stuff about this figure. As you can see it spinning around, there's definitely some good stuff. But boy oh boy, wait till we get to the bad stuff because it is there. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about, let's just say 19 centimeters. He's a little shy of that. That's going to make him pretty close to, let's say, 7 3/8 inches. And before we get into the rest of the review, let's do a quick question of the day. Which version of ETRIGAN is your favorite? For me, it's definitely the red tights one. I like that one a whole bunch. And I think the DC... was it DCUC version? It wasn't DC Superheroes, I don't think. Is an excellent figure. If I could dig mine out, I'd show you, but I have reviewed it, so I'll post that video up there for you guys to check out. I prefer it to this figure by far. Okay, so let's talk about the good on the aesthetic first. I think they nailed the sculpt mostly. There's a couple weird things, and we'll talk about that as we get into the articulation, mostly. But overall, it's sculpted very well. We have lots of nice armor detail, and it's not a super soft sculpt. Could be a little tighter here and there, but it's nice enough. The scale mail looks good. The spikes look good. I think the proportioning is pretty darn good. I definitely prefer the old style ETRIGAN where he was all like beefy and bulky rather than just kind of like thick human sized. But, I mean, given the armor plate and everything, he's actually not very beefy at all here, so that's a little strange. I do think his chest should be blown out a lot because he's wearing a giant, I can't think of the word, whatever, giant piece of armor on his chest, so it should be bigger in order for him to fit inside of it. Same thing for the legs. But it's still a really good overall proportioned figure. Looks nice. The cape is textured, so that's cool. I'm working my way up to the bad stuff. Cape is textured, so that's pretty cool. I do think that the sculpt is bad, though, because it's one of those flat capes, like Fat Batman, where it's flat. There's like a little thickness right here, so that's a little bit better, but it's very flat and looks super cheap. Having this like this, it looks terrible. That's not good. I also don't like that they added a weird wrinkle fold into the collar piece so that the collar is asymmetrical. It sits down here and up here, and that's not good. So that's a bummer. I do like the gunmetal they used around here for the dark parts. That's pretty good. The painted red parts are clean enough. I think the sculpt for the face is good enough. I will say that the paint job on the face is non-existent other than the horns and the eyes and the mouth. And the eyes look terrible compared to what they're supposed to look like. So now it's time to start comparing things, and then we can talk about how bad this figure is in some ways. So first, let's just look at the face there. Goodness, that looks a lot better. The eyes alone are a deal breaker for me. Look at that. I guess it's not a deal breaker, but it's not good. And then if we just look at the rest of the figure, like, oh my goodness. They marketed it, not even just this photo, but even earlier photos where it was actually the figure, like supposedly the figure you're buying. Notice a difference? Holy crap. The gunmetal here is dull as heck compared to this gunmetal, and then there's a wash on all of the scale mail, and also it's silver, not just some weird crappy silver-ish gray plastic, but it's actually silver, and there's a wash. It looks so much better. The skin tone's better on here. Everything about this looks ridiculously better than this. Even the collar isn't jacked up. What the heck? It doesn't look anything like it's supposed to, and as a result, this grayish, silverish plastic looks terrible. Yeah, you could fix it yourself, but it does not look good. It does not look good at all. So, very underwhelming. But we haven't gotten to the bad parts yet. The bad parts come in the articulation. The aesthetic is not the worst part, believe it or not. I think it's close enough to good that I almost want to like it despite its flaws. But it's not what it was advertised as, and the paint, it needs to have at least a wash on this scale mail. It should be silver, and then this should be more metallic too. So I'll give the aesthetic rating a 7 out of 10. I do want to point out this is part of the articulation and part of the aesthetic. He's very skinny in the waist right here, front to back, and very wide, and the way they did it is super weird. We'll get to the rest of that in the articulation. Now for accessories, we do get his sword, which is not that soft, but not that rigid. Also, story of my life. It's okay though, it's not bad. The silver on the blade is a different enough color from the gray it's molded out of that it's okay, but it doesn't stand out anywhere near as much as it should, just like it did on the photo. Which, speaking of which, we get this. I said which twice in one sentence. We get the trading card, which shows us how good the figure could look if it was made properly. So it's like we got the collector card, trading card, whatever you want to call it, that makes our item that we purchased look terrible. So that's nice, but look how nice and shiny the sword is there. Also the armor and everything. So we get that, and then we get the crappy DC display stand, and mine doesn't even have good paint on it that time. So 5 out of 10 for accessories. No fist hands, no open claw hands, just 2 trigger finger hands to hold his sword. Granted he can hold it, but still trigger finger hands for ETRIGAN. Okay, time for the articulation. The head, not too bad. It's on the double ball peg, so it moves around well enough. No issues there. His big ears don't get in the way too much, and it's fine. Doesn't look up all that far, doesn't look down all that far, but it'll do. Shoulder pads are connected at the upper part of the torso. Not the best option, but it's definitely okay, especially given the cape situation. So you can raise the arms up, and the shoulder pads move. They're soft enough. Again, it's not the best, but it works. You do get the ball peg in there that lets the whole arm move around, so that's okay. Shoulder is very loose going out to the side, but it does raise. So again, the shoulder pad's not the best, but it will do. There is no bicep swivel up there. You only get the bicep swivel down here at the elbows, but don't worry. Don't worry, because you do, as you can see here, you do get to swivel the arms around all the way. No problem at all. They have a nice bend, perfect swivel. He can hold his sword in front of him, no problem at all. That's the actual figure, right? They're not cheating or anything like that to show us something that we wouldn't be able to do, right? Wrong. It's actually nowhere near able to do that. It's terribly bad. So the elbow joint is ridiculous. They made the diameter of the elbow joint the size of the bicep to tricep, that far. It's that big. So when you try to use it, you can't, because the forearm's not big enough. You can't bend the arm any more than that, and it's hideous. Just want to make sure you guys can see what's going on here. The way they designed it is that bad. I've never seen an elbow quite like that before, and that's as much bend as you get. And then as far as the rotation, that's where his arms go. To try to mimic the pose on the card, let's raise him up a little bit to make it fair, because his arms are up a little bit. Do you see that? That's nuts. That is absurd. It's not even close to capable of doing what the collector card shows. Those elbows are some of the absolute worst elbows I have ever seen. Part of the problem is the forearm is just as big as the bicep, and that's not how you're supposed to do that. As a rule, the bicep tricep area should be bigger this way, and the forearm should be narrower, and then this way, the bicep tricep area should be narrower this way, and the forearm should be wider that way, because you have muscles this way on the bicep, or on the forearm, and you have muscles this way on the upper arm. But this figure is just a mess in that regard. So the arms are about worthless, almost straight up trash. Ball hinges are okay for the wrists, though they're very yellow. Diaphragm joint, upper diaphragm joint works well. It does lean back nicely, doesn't lean forward, leans side to side well enough, and it rotates a little bit. Now this is one of those weird things that they've done, where normally they put the diaper all the way up to the nipples almost, like super big diapers. On this guy, he's got no diaper. As soon as you lean him back, you see right into his special place. And the way it's done is he has no range. I mean, that's as much range as you get out of that ball peg. With all that cavity and all that lack of plastic, you still get no range, because they're not doing their ball pegs properly. It doesn't lean back very far either, but you can see up in there, all up in there. And then it does go side to side, but again, it just creates a giant gap in his torso, so you can't use that articulation. It does rotate, but it's very stiff. And then once you do, you get all the gaps because they made him so ovular, so wide, but no depth at all. Not good. Okay, so that's a bummer. For the hips, you can bring them pretty far forward, I suppose. I mean, it's not all the way, and given the fact that he's got all these different layers, I would assume that they'd be able to give him enough room, but they didn't, so he can't really bring his leg forward enough. It does go back pretty far, so that's okay. Should we check? He's got no butt. Well, he's got a little butt, I guess. Just a little bit of butt, for those of you concerned about butts. Going out to the side works pretty well, actually, so that's pretty good, almost full-on splits. And then thigh swivel, basically nothing. Double jointed knee, it looks like it's going to be good. Let's see. Yeah, it's overly chunky. Like, why is the knee so huge? Use the knee pad. Don't... Oh. The knee area is humongous. It's functional, but there are giant chunks just missing out of his body once he bends his knee, so that's a bit ridiculous. Ankles are on ball hinges as usual, so you get decent enough range, but they're fairly heavily ratcheted. His is a little lucky because the neutral is actually one of the ratchets, so I'm okay with that, but it's still not good to have a heavy ratchet like that. And you do get a decent ankle rocker out of that. As always, ball hinges are great for ankles, they just shouldn't be ratcheted. Toe hinge is way not where the toes are. Like, look where his toes are. See the toes? This is not a toe hinge. This is a middle of the foot hinge. And so it looks ridiculous. It looks really, really ridiculous. It's like they put the front end of the hinge at the toe. Like that's where the pivot is. It's not. It's not even close. That looks ridiculous. His foot is broken. And it's not the worst toe hinge. I'd take it if it was placed properly, but it's not. So yeah, this figure, boy, could it have been a lot better if it was engineered by somebody who cared about the articulation functioning, or even tried. I don't know what's going on with things like this, but these arms, it's almost as if the person who designed these arms had not seen an action figure before, or tried to move them. Like, you can tell if it's gonna work even if you've never seen it done better. You know this isn't right. This is terrible, this is terrible, the paint job's terrible, there's a lot wrong. Anyway, articulation-wise, I will give it a 4 out of 10 because the arms are basically worthless. So that sucks. Okay, final verdict on this release. It's very disappointing to me because they've spent so much money on tooling. Like, McFarlane's thing is they're making new molds for everything. Great. That's awesome. But that can't be the only thing you have going for you. You had to pay for new molds for making these arms, make them correctly. Then repaint the crap out of it, sell variants, sell chases, do whatever you want, but make the core figure good. What is this? This is a figure that looks like incomparably worse than the card that the figure comes with, and it can't even recreate the pose. This is ridiculous. It's a slap in the face. It's offensive because of this, if nothing else. Like, this is bad. This is like burning the bridge and then peeing on the ashes. There you go. I made up my own saying, sort of. So I'm going to give this a final verdict of 2 out of 10. I'm giving spite points, or taking away spite points for this and for how good it could have looked. And I know what you're thinking. You could just paint it. I definitely could. I could fix every figure that I buy that has flaws, more or less. That's not the point. That's not the point. We're buying these to get the thing as it is, not to have to make our own. So yeah, not worth buying. Do not buy it. I guess it keeps getting discounted in places, so maybe if you wanted to paint your own and you don't care about the articulation, that's a fair enough venture. Like, go ahead. It has a decent sculpt. Mostly you could paint it and make it look great if you never pose it, but the articulation in the arms is just too much for me. I can't take it. I can't. Alright guys, that is it. If you liked the video, please share it. If you didn't, please share it. I don't care. You can share it for negative reasons. That's fine. YouTube doesn't care. I don't care. As long as I get the views, baby. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up too. That'd be great. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Also, I didn't thank you for watching, so thank you for watching. And you guys can comment down below what you think about this whole situation, because I get it. It does at first glance look great, and in some ways, even at second and third glance, looks good. But, well, let me know how you feel about those issues, alright? Okay, so, again, thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every day but Wednesday, and I have thousands and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.